Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. My name is Jared Lee, and I'm joined, as usual, by my lovely wife, Jamie Lee. So, Jamie, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Jared. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
It's been an interesting and busy week.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well,
everything's been super normal.
It's been totally normal. Well, last week, we had a show last week, but we were in Missouri all of last week visiting family. Missouri, as some people, for whatever reason, say.
I don't understand that.
I don't know where the A comes from, but that's what some say, including some of my family. But so we were in Missouri visiting family. And we had, it was actually, and this is the funny part, this is all leading to a good story as to what happened here. It was actually like a pretty calm, uneventful trip, really. Like, we saw family. Like, there was no family fights,
No.
Everyone got to hang out with my brother quite a bit. We saw our little baby niece.
Yeah. That was the reason for the timing, was because my sister had a new baby and we kind of wanted to wait to see her. So we had originally planned on going in June. And when she told me she was having a baby back in February, I was like, well, we're just going to shift our trip a little bit. Yeah. And so we could see her, and our kids got to see their cousins, and it was great. It was great to see family. The drive up there, not so great. Drive back was fine.
Well, I would say the drive there, it wasn't so great. It was just, we got delayed. It was one of those things where it took us 3 extra hours just due to no wrecks, but just slow traffic. It was strange. It was
well, that's what I meant. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't bad. Yeah, and like James said, on the way back, because we were there about a week, on the way back, suspiciously uneventful, I will say. Went very smooth. We only stopped twice. We
were in the car from 6 a.m. to, it was 11 p.m. would have been Central Time, but it ended up being almost midnight here, because it changes time zones. So we were in the car for that long. And we stopped twice.
Yeah, we only stopped twice.
It was unbelievable.
And the kids did really well for the most part.
Yes.
I mean, outside of our son got a little antsy there, but so did I. So whatever. So we get home. Right before midnight. Mm-hmm. Get to sleep on our own bed. I'm like, man, what? This went really well. Thinking I'm gonna wake up Monday morning, get back, get some work done, get some things accomplished.
Yep.
And because mind you, I only got 4 hours of sleep the night before. I was hanging out with my brother a little bit the last night. And
whose fault is that?
That's my own fault.
I know.
And I drove the whole way, so I was extremely tired. And so Jamie was like, what time do you want me to wake you up? And I was like, don't let me sleep past 9 or something if I sleep that late. So Jamie wakes me up, morning up. I have a great night's sleep. And she's like, good morning. We have no internet and the phones don't work. I'm like, great. And this has happened. It's the second time this happened in the past 2 months, because there's construction and apparently they keep hitting the utility lines.
The fiber thing. Yeah.
So that was one way to wake up in the morning. So, can't get anything done. And we can't.
Right.
Basically, it's we're basically lighting candles at this point, and I'm about to head out to the farmstead. And so Jamie at one point's like, the plan was, we were going to have to print some shirts or something. Jamie's like, well, I'm going to head to Publix and go get some internet.
I got to get some internet.
It's probably the South Park episode.
Yes.
So Jamie leaves. She's like, oh, I'll be back. Mind you, I can't call or text her. So
right.
I was like, we'll be fine, because the kids at this point have given up on the TV.
It was like we were living in the 90s.
Yeah, so the kids are just playing. I'm like, whatever. So Jamie leaves, and I don't know, it's maybe 5-10 minutes. And I hear, and this is where it gets really weird, I hear this knocking sound. And I'm like, what is that? And I get closer, and I figure out it's coming from behind. It sounds like behind the wall from the TV, and I'm like, what is that noise? And it almost sounds like somebody's on the outside of the house knocking on it. And then the TV goes, pss, 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 and then has smoke billowing out, like Mission Impossible when they say this will self-destruct, just like that. And I was like, oh! And I see a little bit of a little flare-up thing, like a little flame. And so I grab the TV off the thing, and I just take it outside real quick. And our kids are freaked out. Our daughter was upset. Our son was laughing. And
that's typical. Typical behavior. Yeah.
And I was like, it's fine. In me, I'm still thinking well, maybe the TV's fine. Maybe it's okay.
So you're so positive.
I put it outside, and I'm like, well, this is a great way to, mind you, at this point, it's maybe 10 a.m. It's not
10:30. Yeah.
What is going on? So Jamie walks in the door, and I'm like, while you were gone, you might notice the TV's outside, because it's right on the porch. It's like, yeah. I'm like, it caught on fire. But everything's fine. And then I was like, I'll plug it in just to check. Yeah, it was dead.
Nothing.
So, yeah. So then we had to go get a new TV that day. And by the time I went to go get internet myself, it was already back on. And I was like, great, this is awesome. So
I love that. Go get internet.
basically, what it was.
Like it's
I'm gonna
something
make,
you just
I'm going to make a trip up to Publix and go get some internet. Because we were not the only ones doing that. Publix.
Oh my gosh. Starbucks was packed.
Well, Starbucks and Publix parking lot was completely packed full of people that were getting internet.
They were getting internet.
Yeah, it came back on, and then I was up there, and it's like halfway to Costco at that point. And I was like, well, I guess I might as well just go. Because they had a TV on sale, and so I was like, well, I'll go check it out. Turns out they still had it on sale, so I just went and bought a TV. And not how I envisioned my Monday going, but that's what happened. So the trip was pretty uneventful. The Monday we got back, rather eventful. So
yeah, and then yesterday for us, Jared went and disassembled a trampoline and brought it home.
Sure, just in 100
it was fine. It was no big deal. He didn't come home drenched in sweat.
It's been a weird couple of days, but we're doing good. But we had a great time, and hopefully everybody out there is doing great. Hopefully none of your TVs caught on fire.
Yeah,
it's a strange thing to happen in your home.
That's one thing that I can say never happened to me before. So
I'm glad we're home, because what's scary is like if we weren't home, maybe obviously that potentially could catch a house on fire.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never experienced that, and I was just like, wow, what are the odds? But granted, the TV lasted us. We bought that. It was like 2013 when we bought that TV.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a decade.
It served it. It's done well.
Yeah.
And I will say the bright spot about that day, the trash hadn't came yet.
That's right.
So we just put it right out, and they took it. And
it.
it's like there was no mark of it ever again.
It literally, the process of TV catching on fire to getting it picked up by the trash and getting a new one was like 4 hours.
Something like that.
It was very quick.
But yeah, so that's what's going on with us. That's an update for us in terms of that. But
in conclusion,
yeah. In terms of Disney, we have some things to talk about today, though, because Disney had their earnings call today. So we're going to go over some highlights of that, if you will, and we'll have some discussion about that. And then we're also going to talk about some must-do Halloween things at Disney World.
Yes, Halloween is here.
I know what you're thinking. It's August. Well, it's going to be August 10th. It's 115 degrees on the heat index. It's time for Halloween.
Well, to be fair, they started decorating July 31st.
They did.
but it was just pumpkin, like regular pumpkins, scarecrows, and hay bales. The Mickey wreaths, the Mickey pumpkin wreaths that are on Main Street, they went up today. And that's the official start.
It is.
When you get those Mickey pumpkins on those light poles.
Now, if they melt off the light poles, it'll be an interesting thing, because it's actually had a little bit of heat advisory going on the. This
is the hottest week of the year, and the first Halloween party, which we will discuss that later, is on Friday. So
it is.
The high that day is 99 degrees.
Godspeed to you who are going, because we're not going on that day.
Absolutely
it's
not.
Too hot. So anyways, But yeah, so we're going to talk about all those things. But before we do that, just want to remind everybody, if you want even more content, if you want even more behind the scenes about other things, televisions catching on fire, me disassembling trampolines in the 100-degree heat, or, extra content like Cool Kids Kitchen, Club 32 Speakeasy, the Club 32 show, live stream we do every week, plus in-park live streams, private Facebook group, private Discord, 20% off of CTM apparel and 1901 Candle Company products, and much more. We have watch parties, and I think we're going to do some trivia, all sorts of things. If you want access to that, you should check out Club 32. So you can head on over to ctmvip.com, and you can do monthly or yearly options. And if you do the yearly, you get a free T-shirt. If you do the monthly, you can even do a free trial to see if it's for you. And it's a great way if you want to contribute to the show, or just want more, want to chat with us more, see what's going on with us, or just be in a group full of like-minded fun people. You can do that as well. So anyways, go to ctmvip.com, and if you want to go check that out. So all right, well, let's get to the first part of the news, which will be mostly the earnings report. Here is that the Walt Disney Company had their 2023 quarter 3 earnings call earlier today.
And here's some of what we learned. So there was a lot of information that we got, a lot of stats, we're not going to talk about everything because it's a lot. We're going to focus on the Walt Disney World part and also Disney Plus, because that's the things that we usually talk about on the show. Okay, so for Walt Disney World specifically, even though Disney Parks experiences and products revenues were up 13% and operating income 11%, this was due basically to the international parks.
It's basically because they reopened. A lot of them were still shut down from COVID.
Shanghai was open 3 days. 3 days in the second quarter.
Yeah.
So from then, to now where it was fully operational, yes, that was the reason it was so high. It was mostly because of that. And they said a little bit because of Hong Kong, but that was mostly it. Walt Disney World operating income went down because of, quote, higher costs and lower volumes. The increase in costs was attributable to inflation and accelerated depreciation related to the planned closure of the Star Cruiser. Lower volumes were due to decreases in occupied room nights and attendance, end quote. Disneyland had higher attendance and guest spending, but costs were also high because of inflation. So even though Disneyland was up as far as guest spending, attendance, all that stuff, it was still like they were still just using all that money. Like they weren't making as much as they would like to. In Disney World, obviously, people weren't as going as much, and the room nights, like they said, were not occupied. A lot of vacancies. And they also talked about Disney Vacation Club sales were down.
That I'm not surprised by. Well, also including the whole depreciation for the Star Cruiser.
$300 million.
Yeah, well, it's how they're depreciating it.
Yeah.
The total for that, I'm not really sure. They're doing an accelerated depreciation, I'm sure, on that. Mm-hmm. That gets all into a whole economic thing, which we won't go into.
Right.
But I kind of feel like they threw that in there to sort of. I mean, that is a cost. I'm not saying it's not a cost, but I think they're throwing that in there to kind of hopefully make it not look so bad.
I think you're right.
Because we've been saying for a while, they're probably going to show a loss in the parks, and the parks is the biggest, money maker for Disney. So if that starts showing a downtrend, that is not good for especially the stock price.
Well, they kept saying, or Bob Iger kept saying that they weren't expecting it to be that much growth anyway because they were coming off of the 50th anniversary stuff. And I'm like, okay, sure, but we're still recovering from COVID. So I would think it would recover at a faster rate. That's just my opinion. I don't know, but
he's also going to say that.
True. You got to make it as good as you can, right?
So the thing about earnings calls, I listened to the whole thing. I think you did as well.
I did too. Yep.
They're incredibly boring to listen to. They are not like a lot of people think that they're going to be these like theatrics. And sometimes if you talk about the yearly one, that's the one where people will call in. Like you'll have actually shareholders that are able to ask questions that
they did too today.
Well, that is from what do you call like big time investors, like Merrill Lynch's of the world.
Morgan.
Yes.
Yeah.
The yearly one is when you'll get, everyday Joe Schmoes calling in with questions. But but they were, they put out a report before they have the meeting. So if you actually go through and read it, you actually glean a lot more insight from this than just listening, because obviously they're not going to lie on this, but they're definitely going to try and make it look as great as they can. And I thought when I heard the Star Cruiser thing, I was like, that's interesting. Because that's clearly like the Star Cruiser being closed down is a failure of the Star Cruiser. Then you're also trying to use it as an explanation as to why things were down. Now, I'm not saying it had nothing to do with it, but I think throwing it in there was an interesting little thing to that seems like some creative accounting to me. But
yeah,
but I wasn't surprised to see that in terms of attendance and things being down.
Yes. Moving on to merchandise. This is, just a real quick thing, is that merchandise decreased due to lower revenue from Toy Story, Star Wars, and Avengers. I think it's the licensing stuff.
Yes.
Talking
about.
So I was like, okay, that's interesting. That
is a telltale sign, by the way, of how strong a brand is. Mm-hmm. And the licensing of and that's, by the way, I'm pretty sure that was in the last earnings report that those were also down. That's not a good sign. Now, Toy Story, it's an older brand. It doesn't have it. When Toy Story 3 came out, 4, it came out 2 or 3 years ago at this point.
2019.
Okay, so it's been a bit. So Toy Story being down, that's not a total surprise. It's not really in the zeitgeist as much. But Star Wars and Avengers, more of Marvel. And those are brands that to Disney would be evergreen brands that would always sell. Mm-hmm. That's definitely a sign to me, at least in my opinion, that those brands are they're decreasing in their cultural value, I guess you could say.
Well, I think also too, Disney has sometimes have a really hard time determining what they should sell. And a really good example of this is when Frozen came out in 2013. It came out in November 2013. We went to Disney. We had no idea what this movie was about. And it was just like exploded in popularity. Yet they didn't have any merchandise ready. And we're just like, why is nothing, like it took them so long to get it going because I don't think they anticipated it being like as popular as it was. So you couldn't even find like an Elsa doll or anything like that in the store. So I'm just like, wonder if that's like part of it. They're just overestimating how much people want to buy of Star Wars.
Frozen, it was like a supply chain issue. I don't think they anticipated being so big, and can't.
It wasn't a supply issue.
Well, I'm saying is they can't. Then when they decide, we need to sell more of this stuff, it takes time before they're able to get it in.
Right. I guess my point was they have a hard time anticipating that.
Sometimes they do.
Yeah.
This also merchandise is talking about licensing, so this is also third parties selling. Like sunglasses and T-shirts and socks and things. So that's reporting those being lower as well. So that's it's just something they didn't say how much. I don't believe. I think it's in the report if I remember correctly.
But this is just a general.
It's something that they don't like seeing. I can tell you that much.
No,
because those, especially Star Wars and Marvel, those are brands again that you would just assume are popular. Perpetually. That's what you want anyways. But
let's move on to Disney Plus. So they talked a lot about Disney Plus, and I'll just hit a few things on here. So according to the chart that they showed of Disney Plus subscribers, looks like they lost 300,000 subscribers domestically in third quarter, but monthly revenue increased 2% because of higher costs of subscriptions.
Yeah.
They also mentioned Disney Plus password sharing is a problem. I guess they're going to address it, but not until like early 2024. So that is a thing. Disney Plus price increase is coming soon for non-ad subscriptions. Ad-supported subscriptions will stay the same as well as the same at Hulu. And basically he said he's trying to get people to move to ad-supported. Yes. Obviously. So more ads. I'll
talk about that in a second. Yeah.
And then, but he's saying also most people sign up for that one anyway, but he's like trying to move more toward the ad supported ones. It's a new ad free bundle subscription plan for Disney Plus and Hulu will be available in the US on September 6th. They also announced, I believe it's coming to Canada. Like a Disney Plus like bundle is coming to Canada as well. So they mentioned that too. And I don't know how many times they're going to say this, but growth is not linear. They said that a lot.
They did say that a lot.
They talked about non-linear. It's not linear.
Right.
So, a lot of that.
Well, and also Disney Plus, they were anticipating, investors were, of a loss of around $700 million, which would be pretty steady for them per quarter on Disney Plus. They did better. They only lost $512 million, so half a billion. But that's that is better than $700 million in their defense.
Gosh, that's so much money.
But again, I mean that is an improvement because they lost over $1 billion 2 quarters ago in 1 quarter. So
yeah. What was last year?
Well, it's 2 quartars ago. They lost that.
Oh, in 2022. Yeah.
Disney Plus is an interesting thing because Iger is what they're going to do, and all these streaming services are going to do is the little secret is they don't really make money on the ad-free subscriptions. Where the money is made is on the ad subscriptions. And if you remember correctly, like cable, for instance, when cable first came out, it was ad-free. Mm-hmm. And then they started having ads because it's really the only way to make it profitable.
Right.
So they are going to, and he talked about this a bit, they see the Netflix pricing model and they see the revenue for Netflix and they have their eye on that. So they are going to rather aggressively raise prices on Disney Plus. Probably, I think Netflix is around $20 a month now.
I have no idea because we don't have Netflix.
Yeah, it's around $20 some a month now. Disney's going to basically try and match that. Mm-hmm. is what they're going to do, but they're probably going to leave the ad one alone because that's where they want people to go.
And that's what he said. He said the next price increase, it will not affect the ad-supported one.
Now, they didn't talk about on the ad-supported one. I didn't hear him say much about the performance of the ads or anything on there, so that's still an unproven thing to a bit.
Right, but he did say that more ads are coming.
They yeah.
Is basically what he said. He's trying to boost the ad-supported section, basically.
Right. And I'm not surprised to hear about the password sharing because Netflix proved you can go after that, and Netflix has been doing well since doing that. So they're probably looking at that thinking, oh, if we can do that, we can boost subscribers.
Right.
Thing.
Well, and he said that someone asked a question about the password sharing and like, what are the numbers on it? Like how many people are sharing? He did not share a specific number, but he said it's significant.
If you remember, Netflix early on encouraged password sharing because they just wanted more eyeballs on it. And Disney for a long time, the revenue they didn't care about is what the subscriber numbers. And now they're kind of caught in this battle where they need both.
Yeah.
And, they also lost, I think I wrote it down. It was overseas. They lost something like 7 million. They lost a lot of subscribers over in India.
Yeah, it was something to do with that.
It's the same thing with the hotspot, the cricket thing, but still it's a significant. I mean, the India market doesn't make as much money in the U.S., but it's still a significant loss. So Disney Plus, unsurprisingly, is still a bit of a mess. The Hulu thing coming in. The one thing that's interesting is they did mention, I guess we'll just talk overall here, unless you have anything else you want to add about Disney Plus.
Not about Disney Plus, but I have other things to talk about.
The only thing is with that Disney Plus is I don't know if I see them, like the thing is they talk about increasing revenue, all these things like that. My question is how? The content is not there. The best thing that you have on that thing is Bluey at this point. I love Bluey, but it's not even a Disney thing. It's just, they just distribute it or show it in the U.S. So Iger talked about, and one of the reasons of Disney Plus's losses is the cost on shows. Secret Invasion cost $212 million. A lot of these Disney Plus shows are costing in the $200 millions of dollars. There's many of them doing it.
Well, that right there is your problem.
Yes. So he did mention needing to essentially, I forget how he exactly said it, but control the spending on the essentially the entertainment side. So they definitely need to do that, which it's good to hear them say that because it is a problem. But with the writer's strike going on, I don't see how, like, obviously you need content to get people to come onto your platform. I'm just not seeing how they're going to do that without any new content that people are really wanting a lot. That's just my question for it.
Well, to shift over into movies, he doesn't really talk a lot about movies, but he did mention that he was, kind of disappointing to see how the movies in this year especially were performing. But he did mention how, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was doing well. And he mentioned The Way of the Water and like stuff that was doing well. And that he will spend more time focusing on improving the movies. The studio side. It's like, okay.
Well,
how?
Right. And he's saying we as if like he's involved in the creative process, which I thought is interesting.
Right.
The thing it came from, an investor actually asked, investors never ask questions about movies because when it comes to Disney historically, again, the parks and all that stuff make the most money. So the movies have always self-funded themselves. They've always made money. They've never been an issue for investors. And it's just that thing. They actually asked about the movie losses because now you have other departments funding the movies because they have lost so much money. They've lost over $1 billion.
Yeah.
They asked them essentially, what are you doing about this? What's the plan going forward? And he pointed to, he said Way of Water, which again, that's not really a Disney thing. That's a James Cameron thing and a Fox thing that they basically have. And the deal with that is too, they essentially are distributors of it. So they didn't even get the most money out of that. And then Guardians, well, yes, and I really liked Guardians. It's a good movie, but it was essentially that's a James Gunn movie, and that's a
It's still Disney though.
It's still Disney, but you can't replicate that because James Gunn is gone.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So it's like it's not like you can build off of Guardians because he's done and he's over at DC now doing the DCU universe. So he's pointing to two things that they really didn't have a lot to do with.
I see what you're
essentially.
saying.
So I found that to be interesting. Not a lot of answers, but I didn't really expect a lot of answers in this situation. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
Somebody did ask, this is like the final question, if it would ever be possible or ever be even plausible for a company like Disney to be bought by a tech. They said tech kind of.
They didn't name Apple
specifically.
but yeah, they said a tech company.
But he did not comment at all. He didn't say anything.
Well, he did.
He really didn't.
He didn't say no.
No, he didn't say no. He didn't say yes.
He didn't say no. He essentially said, and I do agree with this, that essentially to do it, you would have to clear so much red tape with like the FCC and federal. You got the Federal Trade Commission and you have the FCC. He essentially said it would be a logistical nightmare to even attempt it, which he's not wrong, but he didn't say no. That was the interesting thing I took away from it. No. He didn't immediately just offhandedly say that's out of the question. We're not doing that. So that part was interesting to me. He didn't fuel it, but by him not saying no, though, to me, the door is cracked. And now one thing, if they did actually have an offer for Disney, they would have to disclose that. So there hasn't been any official offer made. If there's speculation that has happened, that hasn't happened because they would have to say so. But yeah, the investor questions were interesting because they were a little bit more aggressive. And I think some of them are looking at Disney, and we've been talking about the weaknesses in the company, and you're seeing it from the Wall Street Journal and other publications talking about it. And Iger has had pieces written about him that he's not the golden goose that he was 4 or 5 years ago to these people. So they're getting a little bit more aggressive with this. They basically with these, he disclosed whatever he had to disclose, and then he's like, I'm not talking anymore. And they got in and out of there quick. This was not a long earnings call.
I don't know how many questions how many people, like 6?
They usually take a handful. I think it only took 5 questions, and that was it.
Is that it? Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's basically all we really wanted to mention with the earnings call. I mean, they did speak a little bit more about other things, but that's what we're going to focus on. I'll be interested to see how Disney performs with Walt Disney World, specifically in the fourth quarter, because as we know, and as we've been talking about on the show, is that they were really struggling to get the bookings higher, to fill hotel rooms, to up the attendance from what it was, I think, trying to match or even, rise above 2019 numbers. And they're kind of struggling with that. So I'm interested to see the difference between quarter 3 and quarter 4, and what even the fiscal quarter 1 for 2024 is going to look like, because there's a lot of things that they've been trying to do with discounts on vacation packages or vacation or difference in rooms, the bounce back offers, stuff like that. So I think this gives us an idea of what could be coming, and it doesn't look great for Walt Disney World. So
the earnings call in general wasn't. I mean, there were some people predicting it was just going to be this bloodbath and so it wasn't. It wasn't the worst thing. It wasn't good, but it wasn't the worst, earnings call you could hear.
No.
Obviously, some of the discounts they were running earlier in the year didn't bump attendance like they were wanting probably. Now, we don't know where that would have been without those, so we'll see if the ongoing ones do anything for quarter 4. So that's something like you were saying. It was interesting at one point, the investors, they were asking about movies, and he basically pointed to, we did really well in 2019. I'm like, that's not a really, essentially it's like someone who's had a gambling problem or has a gambling problem now, and then they're like, 5 years ago I was good. I have a problem now.
I must have missed that one.
They asked him a question, he pointed to 2019, which was, 2019 was a record-breaking year for them. But the problem with that answer is there's other movies that are doing well. I'm just saying that answer is just one where, to me, obviously he's gonna have that answer because he's the CEO and he's trying to come up with something to make it look better.
Right.
But it still is you're gonna point to 4 or 5 years ago as that's
Yeah. But anyway, so that's all we want to talk about with that, I think.
Yeah. Overall, it was an earnings call. Nothing amazing came out of it, but
we learned a lot. We learned a lot.
We learned a lot. Yeah.
All right, move on.
The only thing I will say, one of these earnings calls, somebody is going to ask about Epic Universe. They haven't done it yet, One of these, I think, as Epic Universe gets closer to opening, one of these investors is going to ask about it.
Maybe.
Because I'm very curious as to what his answer would be in terms of like their answer for it.
I don't know.
I'm just saying one of these. I'm saying in the next year, somebody's going to ask about it. But anyways. All right. That's it on the earnings call. So.
Okay.
All right. The next bit of news we have is that the live-action Little Mermaid will be available on Disney Plus on September 6th.
Which I'm noticing now is the same date that the ad-free bundle with Hulu and Disney Plus goes on sale.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. Speaking of princesses, World Princess Week begins August 20th. And that's basically a celebration of all things princess. We've got music, movies, Legos, merchandise, food, drinks, etc. And it's all going on at Disney World, and they kind of started already in August as well. So if you have a little princess in your life, or you love princesses in general, celebrate them August 20th through the 26th.
Oh, this has a week up, yeah.
Yes, so that's going on.
There you go. Yeah. This next bit of news is one that could impact people potentially.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine a lot of people won't like this. At Walt Disney World Resorts, Bell Services will no longer hold alcohol.
Right. So there are some grocery delivery services that are able to verify your ID when like basically you place the order for the alcohol. And before, they were able to leave your grocery order with alcohol at Bell Services and hold it for you. Basically, Disney's like, no, we're not doing that anymore. And I don't know. They didn't say why. I'm guessing it was because maybe they had other people buy the alcohol, and like people that weren't of age or not the same person that made the order pick it up or something like that. Like, just can't verify the age.
I could see, when we talk about this, like I could see the loophole here in that, for instance, we use Kroger delivery at our house, and every once in a while we'll get something like a cider or something, and you have to verify your age on the thing. And when they deliver it to you, it has to be delivered to a person.
Yeah.
I don't believe they check ID when you do that, though. They might when they come to the door. So the loophole could be you're not 21. You place the order. They leave it with Bell Services. Well, Bell Services is not going to probably check your ID because they're just not equipped to do that. They're just giving you your stuff. And so my guess is the way Disney operates, they're very reactionary. They had an incident happen where underage people were buying alcohol. And then they looked at it and went, oh, we could be held liable, so we're just going to stop doing this. That's my guess as to what happened. They're probably not obviously going to come out and say anything. But it doesn't mean that you can't have it delivered. It just means Bell Services can't be the ones that receive it. You have to be the one to be there whenever the grocery delivery shows up.
Right. Yeah. If you have alcohol in your order, you have to meet the delivery person to pick it up.
Correct.
So... like it's fine. The only thing that is kind of unfortunate is if like, okay, what if you fly in at 8 a.m. on let's say a Monday or whatever, and your room's not ready until 3, yet you make a grocery order at like 10 and it's ready, and they're just gonna hold on to the order until for a couple hours, or like you just have to like, scratch your day and meet him in the lobby and get your alcohol and just hold it.
Well, also the conspiracy theorist in me thinks, well, time's a little tougher in the parks right now. Bookings are down. How do we boost a little bit of alcohol sales?
That could
make
be
it a little
more
more difficult to get alcohol to the room, and then people are just gonna be like, I'll just go get a drink at the bar.